Bay's first project of its kind in 25 years. Residents are expected to move in this summer. President Trump is in Saudi Arabia. It's the first stop on his trip to the Middle East. Trump sat down with the Crown Prince to talk about business investments in the U.S. The two governments signed agreements on a number of topics, including defense, energy, and mineral resources. And the Warriors need to win in Minnesota tomorrow or their season is over. They might have to head to Cancun. The Dubs dropped Game 4 to the Timberwolves in the Western Conference semifinals last night. Final score 117-110. It's unclear if Steph Curry will return to the court. He has missed the last 3 games with a hamstring injury. I'm Ryan Yamamoto with The Minute.
You're streaming CBS News Bay Area.
I've had this happen to me 3-4 times before, and a couple of times I got left with nothing but clothes on my back.
Well, their makeshift homes have come crashing down, and some have nowhere else to go. Now homeless people are running into roadblocks trying to secure a shelter. Plus, health leaders sound the alarm on a drug more potent than fentanyl. It's already proven deadly right here in the Bay Area.
When you buy a pill off the street, you have absolutely no idea what's in that pill.
And we're introducing to a man who's carefully crafting living masterpieces to showcase the beauty of bonsai.
When I first started, I kind of sensed. Then I realized this was just meant to be. But I don't think I'd call it fate. It was just something that I was destined to do this.
Thanks for joining us. I'm Ryan Yamamoto. Let's start with our first alert weather with Jessica Birch, who is tracking another warm-up this week.
Well, we're drying up as we head into this afternoon's forecast. Yesterday, we had just a series of showers sweeping throughout the bay, giving us close to half an inch of rain all the way up into the Oakland Hills. But today, it's a lot drier and a little bit warmer, too. We're talking about upper 60s today in San Francisco and Oakland. A return to the 70s anywhere from wine country up into Santa Rosa and Novato and Napa, all the way over into the East Bay near Antioch and Livermore, too. We're also seeing 70s down into the Santa Clara Valley, and eventually we'll even see some 80s right around the corner as we head into this week's forecast because we're warming up and drying up each day. Let's talk about it real fast. I want to show you a couple things happening. The winds are relatively light for us in the morning hours, but it does get gustier moving in from offshore as we head into the afternoon. Wind gusts can get anywhere up to around 25 to 30 miles per hour at times along that coastline from Bodega Bay all the way into San Francisco and Half Moon Bay. And at the same time, we're just seeing some partly cloudy skies fill the Bay Area as we head into the evening hours tonight. Now, as high pressure ridges its way in from offshore, this system right here is going to do a couple things for us. It moves the storm track just to the north, all the way up into the Pacific Northwest. So it's keeping us dry, but it's also changing the direction of the winds too, meaning we'll see a different influence when it comes to the clouds, but at least it's still dry days ahead of us, not a drop of rain in sight. So let's head over to the next 7 days. I want to show you a couple things that are going to look different for us. Starting off with our inland forecast. You take a look at our daytime highs today compared to Thursday or Friday, we're into the upper 70s and lower 80s, back and forth throughout the next couple days with a little bit cooler weather diving into Saturday's forecast. Now you make your way over into the Bay, so closer to San Francisco, Oakland. Well, we're flirting with 60s and 70s all week long, which is partly cloudy skies holding on tight too.
All right, thanks, Jess. Well, today, those impacted by homelessness are left wondering what the future will look like now that the Governor Newsom has called on cities and counties to crack down on encampments. The governor unveiled a blueprint he says they can enforce. It requires 48 hours notice of sweeps and every reasonable effort to offer shelter. This new push is not a mandate and cities can decide on penalties, but Newsom says he's giving them a model they can put to work immediately.
It is time to take back the streets. It's time to take back the sidewalks. It's time to take these encampments and provide alternatives. And the state is giving you more resources than ever.
Newsom also announced the release of a $3.3 billion in funding from Proposition 1. That money will go to help local governments expand housing and treat behavioral health problems. It is projected to add more than 5,000 treatment beds and nearly 22,000 outpatient treatment slots. Bay Area cities are already finding their own ways to deal with those encampments. In San Jose, the mayor has considered arresting people who refuse shelter again and again. But as our John Ramos heard from an advocate who says the aggressive approach won't work.
The help comes in the form of a sample ordinance offered as a template for cities to adopt to deal with encampments. It spells out the problems from public safety issues to health dangers to blight, and concludes with, quote, large encampments and those with semi-permanent structures exacerbate and perpetuate these harms. Every local government must have a plan to address them, end quote. That seems to be the point of the order, to get every city on board with the effort.
We have to call out those that aren't even engaging in this conversation and somehow think it's someone else's responsibility, not just on homelessness, but on housing as well.
Someone who is engaging in that conversation is San Jose Mayor Matt Mahan.
We cannot allow for camping by choice. Permanent encampments are very corrosive for society. As you know, we already do hundreds of encampment abatements per year.
Mahan says ending what he calls the era of encampments has been his top priority since taking office, and the city is looking to add teeth to its approach, including a policy to arrest people who repeatedly refuse the offer of a bed at a shelter. And he says it's the state's responsibility to make sure that San Jose isn't alone in the effort.
Only the state can ensure that every city, every county does its fair share, and that we have a uniform set of policies and laws that allow us to intervene and incentivize people to come indoors. Most people say yes, and they're grateful for it. I think we should be especially concerned about those who say no repeatedly.
But as he was saying that, a group of homeless advocates were gathered outside, protesting against the city's position that homelessness is some kind of choice.
If our economy hadn't tanked, if people hadn't lost so many jobs during COVID, if people hadn't gotten sick, this wouldn't be happening. There aren't people out there, substantial amounts of people living out there because they like it, because it's great living out there in the cold and the wet and being exposed to the elements of all the people around you. It's not like a great choice.
Shawn Cartwright is founder of a homeless advocacy group. She believes the push by Newsom to shut down encampments across the state has more to do with personal politics than it does camping.
It's been obvious to many people that the governor is posturing so that he can run for higher office, much like Mayor Mahan is posturing so he can run for higher office. So the governor has been seen as a liberal who has been soft on homelessness. And so now he's got to get hard on homelessness so he can run and ditch all these homeless people. They're both doing the same thing. They're ditching homeless people, getting hard on homeless people so that they can get out of here.
There is a concern that if cities do not adopt Newsom's ordinance, it could lead to the denial of state homeless funding. The governor says that's not currently the case, but he does seem intent on getting everyone on board with the move to shut down the encampments.
Well, the governor's model comes after last year's Supreme Court ruling that said cities could enforce camping bans and clear encampments, even if space is not available in shelters. And the city of Oakland just cleared one of its largest homeless encampments. It covered a stretch of East 12th Street near Fruitvale Avenue in East Oakland. Last week, the city gave dozens of people living there notice to clear out. And on Monday, the city fired up the Bulldozers. Lauren Toms was there as people watched their makeshift homes get torn down.
The crashing of wood and metal that once held up an encampment on East 12th Street in Oakland is a familiar sound for residents like Victoria. She's lived here for the better part of 4 years and says her encampment was one of the first to be torn down.
They started with my area, and so it's a little overwhelming, a little frustrating, but I made do. I've had this happen to me 3 or 4 times before, and a couple of times I got left with nothing but clothes on my back. So
she says it never gets easier to see the structures get swept away. The city estimates 79 people live in the East 12th Street encampment, though homeless advocates estimate that number is higher. City officials say 41 residents have accepted offers to move to a former Extended Stay America hotel that the city purchased for shelter. But Victoria tells me she was only able to put her name on a wait list for temporary housing.
They said that all the rooms are filled up, like they don't have as much housing as they say they do.
The planned encampment sweeps brought in aid from across Oakland. Nita B. arrived early to prepare lumpia for those evicted. She spent years unhoused in Victoria's shoes.
Mad, frustrated, traumatized.
Her group, the Village in Oakland, provided many of the supplies now being torn down. But she expects it to be rebuilt just as quickly as it was taken down.
I've witnessed this encampment been bulldozed more than a dozen times. And every single time people come right back. So what else are they going to do?
The city warned residents of the planned sweeps, giving them 7 days to vacate. Housing, health, and animal services were on site during the sweep. Nearby business owners say it's a step in the right direction, but still it's not enough to end the encampments for good. Luke owns a tire shop just 1 block away. He didn't want to show his face, but he tells us the encampment has cost him business.
My father and I, we try to show as much love to them. We bring them food, warm clothes during the holiday time. So it's not much as them like really coming in here and causing a ruckus. It's just the very presence of all that trash and all that stuff just makes our customers feel pretty uneasy.
He says he hopes the city can do more to address the root cause of homelessness, and Victoria agrees. But for now, she waits for word on shelter.
Hopefully, whenever they're done putting these people in rooms, I will be able to get a room. They should offer me a room. They took my house from me.
Hoping for good news and a new place to call home.
Oakland's unsheltered homeless population grew by more than 9.5% from 2022 to 2024, and that's despite an 11% drop in all of Alameda County over the same time frame. More than half the county's homeless population lives in Oakland. More than 100 affordable housing units are now set to open soon on VTA property in San Jose, right next to the Tamian station. Residents are expected to move in beginning in August. The project has a total of 135 units. 67 of those units are for people who are homeless. The VTA says this is the first affordable housing project to be built on its property in 25 years. The agency says it has 10 projects like this in the pipeline. Still ahead on CBS News Bay Area.
I can constantly survey what our patients are dying from.
A recent death in the Bay Area tied to a drug 100 times stronger than fentanyl. Dire warning about pills purchased on the streets. Plus, a Cybertruck driver caught dumping garbage on the streets of Oakland. Hear from neighbors on a mission to hold him accountable.
Just shows a level of entitlement and disrespect.
And a unique college program aimed at filling jobs in the cannabis industry will introduce you to a longtime biotech worker who went through it in hopes of a mid-career shift.
In the Bay Area, a new WNBA franchise is taking flight. Catch this first-in-a-lifetime inaugural season as the Golden State Valkyries play live on KPIX and Pix Plus.
conditions widespread throughout our inland areas today, and drier conditions too. It was just yesterday we were talking about rain, but now day by day heading into this weekend, we're just going to see partly cloudy skies in the forecast. Eventually some 80s trickled in there too for our daytime highs as early as Thursday, and then we're back down into the 70s diving into this weekend's forecast. Now it is a little bit cooler and a little bit cloudier for our friends along the coast and along the bay. That's going to be noticeable each day for us this week, but at least we'll hit the 70s right around the corner. Thursday heading into Friday to kick off this weekend nice and mild.
Public health officials in Santa Clara County are sounding the alarm about a new drug that's 100 more times potent than fentanyl. It's called Carfentanil, a synthetic opioid that was developed as a tranquilizer for elephants and other large animals. But now it seems they have entered the illegal drug supply and has been tied to a recent overdose death. Our Kenny Choi heard from county officials about this new treatment.
There's a thick stack of papers that sits on a shelf directly across from Dr. Michelle Jordan's desk. Santa Clara County's chief medical examiner flips through the toxicology reports. Each sheet represents a drug overdose death.
I can constantly survey what our patients are dying from.
The medical examiner's office confirmed late last month the first overdose death due to carfentanil, a synthetic opioid about 10,000 times stronger than morphine and 100 times stronger than fentanyl.
The reason why this death is so important to report out is because we have a very high suspicion that the fake pills we observed on scene were laced with carfentanil.
Authorities found fake oxycodone pills at the scene where a 39-year-old male was found dead. They say counterfeit M30 pills or any other pill purchased on the streets could be laced with carfentanil.
When you buy a pill off the street, you have absolutely no idea what's in that pill.
Dr. Sarah Rudman is Santa Clara County's public health director. Officials are pushing a more aggressive campaign highlighting this latest public health threat.
Some of the things that this coalition is working on include education about the new threat of carfentanil to healthcare providers, community organizations, and to our harm reduction clients who may be at risk of accidental carfentanil exposure.
To mitigate the harms, the Santa Clara County Opioid Overdose Prevention Project offers various avenues of support. It provides overdose reversing medication naloxone, drug test strips, and help getting into treatment.
We've handed out flyers, we've held trainings for healthcare providers, and we've worked directly with our clients who come to us in the field for a wide range of services to make sure they're hearing from a trusted source exactly what they need to know about this new risk.
Health officials say minimal exposure to carfentanil, including skin contact or inhalation of airborne powder, can result in death.
It is a constant reminder that we have to continue every day to monitor for any type of new drugs that are emerging.
It's a reminder and a warning of a deadly drug that's already here and its potential impact.
Santa Clara County Opioid Overdose Prevention Project now offers free naloxone by mail to anyone 18 or older who lives in Santa Clara County. We have a link to our website at kpix.com. Well, today in Oakland, healthcare workers are rallying to save Wilma Chan Highland Hospital. The organizers say that hospital is one of several across the state that could close if Congress cuts funding to Medicaid. They say the goal of today's rally is to pressure the House of Representatives to block those cuts from happening. House Republicans are looking to slash hundreds of billions of dollars in Medicaid spending to help offset the costs of President Trump's tax cuts. Well, some neighbors in West Oakland are outraged after a man was caught on camera dumping construction material out of his cyber truck. It happened Thursday afternoon near the intersection of Campbell and 24th Street. That's not far from Ramonde Park. Donlin spoke to neighbors who say they can't believe it.
Dumping in Oakland. That's so bro.
A neighbor on her way home from work caught the driver of a cyber truck tossing a load of construction material onto Campbell Street.
He was, pulling. What I saw specifically was like this thing.
Most of the trash appears to be leftover hardwood flooring.
Disappointment, and then anger and frustration.
Andrea Taylor witnessed and recorded the dumping. She says what stood out was the vehicle. The license plate came back to a 2025 Cybertruck.
If they can afford that vehicle, they can afford to go to the dump with a load.
It happened on Thursday afternoon around 5:45 p.m. in a part of West Oakland that's long been plagued by illegal dumping. Much of Campbell Street is lined with couches, mattresses, tires, and construction debris.
It just shows a level of entitlement and like disrespect to every person here.
A city spokesperson says they have the footage. The environmental enforcement team is investigating. They've identified the license plate and even the VIN. The city posted a photo of the incident on its Facebook page, reminding people to record and report illegal dumping.
He doesn't think twice about it. He doesn't feel like he's doing anything wrong. Like broad daylight, all of that.
The city says in 2023, it issued at least 405 citations to violators, 42 of them based on camera footage. The city provided this graphic showing that in fiscal year 2021-2022, public works crews picked up 17,000 tons of trash. That's 34 million pounds.
It's ridiculous, you know, like it's disheartening to see. It's just kind of like, do the right thing, take care of your own garbage.
The fine for a first illegal dumping offense in Oakland can be up to $750. Andrea and her neighbors say a ticket isn't enough. They want the driver to do community service as well.
What we want is behavior change, and to me, engaging in that sort of thing would be a better, push in that direction.
The city of Oakland reminds residents they're entitled to one free curbside bulky pickup each year, and in some cases, 2. Doesn't matter if you're a renter or homeowner, it's a free service. You just have to call them to make the appointment.
After some tech issues late last month, applications for a voucher toward an e-bike will open up at the end of this month. According to CalBike, California's e-bike incentive project gives some eligible residents up to $2,000 for that purchase. Eligibility is limited to people 18 and older with certain income levels. You can check out the requirements at ebikeincentives.org. Applications open on May 29th. Still ahead, a Bay Area biotech worker switching her career and trying something new through a course offered at her local university.
This is just another interesting twist that I hopefully can use my previous skills with.
Meet the woman now working in the cannabis industry and why it's never too late to pivot your career. Well, it's never too late to try something new, even a whole new career. That holds especially true for one Pacifica woman who spent decades in the pharmaceutical industry. As our Suji Nam explains, she's now starting a whole new chapter, this time in the cannabis industry.
Gina O'Hara has been a consultant and technical writer for traditional pharmaceutical companies for the past 30 years. But she was up for a change and soon found herself diving into the cannabis industry.
When it became legalized here and lots of friends and things were going to dispensaries and stuff, began trying things, but I was more interested in the medicinal aspects of it.
O'Hara discovered Green Flowers Cannabis Certification course at Cal State East Bay, a 6-month online program.
Cannabis plant itself and how it works in the body and stuff. After everyone takes that, you can kind of specialize into different fields.
Different fields like agriculture, medicine, and product development. O'Hara is one of more than 70 Cal State East Bay students who passed the course.
There's my certificate that I got once I was done.
She is a part of Green Flowers' push to fill the job gap in the cannabis industry. According to a recent report, there were more than 78,000 cannabis market jobs in the state last year, a potentially alarming trend.
There is some compression happening in the cannabis industry here in California, but it doesn't mean that there's still a real dearth of opportunity.
Opportunities Green Flowers CEO Max Simon is optimistic his students will take in an industry that is facing some pushback.
Still have a federal contradiction to the state laws, and that creates all sorts of challenges from a banking or a compliance or a fundraising standpoint. I actually think we're very, very close to some federal reform, which will fundamentally change the industry in pretty dramatic ways.
According to the 2024 California Cannabis Market Report, the number of active licenses decreased by 18% last year. Some of those reasons: increased costs, regulatory compliance, and competition with unlicensed cannabis markets. But Simon says his company's online program and network will be a catalyst to boost the workforce in California.
Whether you're a lawyer or a doctor or a finance specialist or an investment banker that take these programs and then add cannabis to their practice.
And O'Hara fits right in. In addition to working in biotech, she is now actively looking for contract jobs in the cannabis industry.
People like me who've already done some things, but this is just another interesting twist that I hopefully can use my previous skills with.
O'Hara hopes to inspire others that it's never too late to try something new, even in the midst of your career, because you never know where it will take you next.
Cal State East Bay says the course starts up again every 6 to 8 weeks, and we'll be back in July. Coming up in our next half hour on CBS News Bay Area, a new report revealing how many Bay Area families are struggling to put food on the table. What's driving the growing insecurity, and how food banks are trying to fill the void.
These are people, again, that are just critical to our community, that are really struggling due to the high cost of living here.
Plus, meet San Francisco's mothers who are calling on the mayor to end a policy that could put them and their kids back on the streets. I'm Ron Yamamoto. This is The Minute. Today, the VTA in San Jose will give us a preview of an affordable housing project. The development is on VTA property right next to the Tamian station. It has more than 100 units. This is VTA's first project of its kind in 25 years. Residents are expected to move in this summer. President Trump is in Saudi Arabia. It's the first stop on his trip to the Middle East. Trump sat down with the Crown Prince to talk about business investments in the U.S. The two governments signed agreements on a number of topics, including defense, energy, and mineral resources. It's do or die for the Warriors. The Dubs lost to the Timberwolves in Game 4 of the Western Conference semifinals last night, 117-110. The Warriors now must win Game 5 in Minnesota tomorrow to keep their season alive. It's unclear if Steph Curry will return to the court after missing the last 3 games.
You're streaming CBS News Bay Area.
Well, we're drying up as we head into this afternoon's forecast. Yesterday, we had just a series of showers sweeping throughout the bay, giving us close to half an inch of rain all the way up into the Oakland Hills. But today, it's a lot drier and a little bit warmer, too. We're talking about upper 60s today in San Francisco and Oakland. A return to the 70s anywhere from wine country up into Santa Rosa and Novato and Napa, all the way over into the East Bay near Antioch and Livermore, too. We're also seeing 70s down into the Santa Clara Valley, and eventually we'll even see some 80s right around the corner as we head into this week's forecast because we're warming up and drying up each day. Let's talk about it real fast. I want to show you a couple things happening. The winds are relatively light for us in the morning hours, but it does get gustier moving in from offshore as we head into the afternoon. Wind gusts can get anywhere up to around 25 to 30 miles per hour at times along that coastline from Bodega Bay all the way into San Francisco and Half Moon Bay. And at the same time, we're just seeing some partly cloudy skies fill the Bay Area as we head into the evening hours tonight. Now, as high pressure ridges its way in from offshore, this system right here is going to do a couple things for us. It moves the storm track just to the north, all the way up into the Pacific Northwest, so it's keeping us dry, but it's also changing the direction of the winds too, meaning we'll see a different influence when it comes to the clouds, but at least it's still dry days ahead of us, not a drop of rain in sight. So let's head over to the next 7 days. I want to show you a couple things that are going to look different for us. Starting off with our inland forecast. You take a look at our daytime highs today compared to Thursday or Friday, we're into the upper 70s and lower 80s, back and forth throughout the next couple days with a little bit cooler weather diving into Saturday's forecast. Now you make your way over into the Bay, so closer to San Francisco, Oakland. Well, we're flirting with 60s and 70s all week long, which is partly cloudy skies holding on tight too.
Well, new data from the Bay Area's largest food bank reveals just how many families are struggling to put food on the table. That's putting a huge strain on our local food banks, also dealing with the rising costs of groceries and cuts from the federal government. Max Darrow has the story.
In one of the most affluent communities in the country, many residents are quietly battling a problem that is more severe than many of their neighbors realize.
We are seeing the highest level of food insecurity we have seen.
Leslie Baccio, the CEO of Second Harvest of Silicon Valley, says it's largely connected to the high cost of living in San Mateo and Santa Clara counties. A recent client survey revealed 9 out of 10 parents who responded worry they won't be able to afford enough nutritious food for their kids. Around 60% of employed respondents say they can't cover their monthly expenses. Many of them working essential jobs in the service industry, says Baccio.
These are people, again, that are just critical to our community that are really struggling due to the high cost of living here to be able to pay their bills and still put food on the table. So we also see a lot of seniors, again, who are really struggling to be able to afford to age in place well here and still be able to have access to nutritious food.
Demand is high as food banks nationwide deal with funding cuts from the federal government.
And we have a lot fewer resources to meet the need. I mean, we need to raise 20% more funds to be able to just break even this year. There are so many changes happening right now. We had a bunch of loads from the U.S. Department of Agriculture canceled that I know you all have helped shine a light on. That was $1 million worth of food that went away overnight. There's also lots of rumors about cuts to SNAP, what's known as CalFresh locally, what was formerly known as food stamps. And we know that anytime there are cuts to those programs, our lines get longer.
Baccio says they have to rely heavily on private sector funding and individual donations.
Every donation, large and small, really helps. We are just trying to get the food closer to where people are going because we know how many things they're juggling. throughout the day.
All in the hopes of providing a stronger safety net for neighbors in need.
An East Bay man has gone the extra mile to raise money for the food bank. He just finished running the entire length of every street in Alameda County. That's about 16,000 streets since he began in 2019, and he says it's all been worth it.
You know, you never regret it at the end. When you're done, you don't regret it. During, it might be hard, but you don't regret it at the end.
Chris has pledged to match donations up to 20 cents for each of his 16,000 streets that he ran. Thousands of children in Oakland will be able to get free meals this summer. City leaders say the summer food service program will operate as normal starting at the end of the month. About 2,000 lunches will be delivered to kids every day through the second week of August. New data shows inflation cooled and some prices dropped. The consumer index in April rose 2.3% from a year ago. That's the lowest rate in more than 4 years. Grocery prices dropped slightly last month, but consumers are paying more for things like car parts. Schools across the Bay Area meeting today to address ways to gap millions of dollars in budget deficits. San Francisco Unified says it's closer to balancing its budget, and state overseers are allowing the district to hire 162 teachers. The district had been under a year-long hiring freeze because of its nearly $114 million deficit. In the meantime, in the South Bay, a community is calling for the Santa Clara County Office of Education to reverse hundreds of teacher layoffs. The district is proposing layoffs for nearly 300 employees to close a $360 million budget hole. The cuts will include early childhood educators, special educators, and mental health counselors. Union leaders warn these layoffs target those working with the most vulnerable students. And in light of Governor Newsom's crackdown on encampments, homeless families in San Francisco now asking Mayor Lurie for empathy. They say the city should end its policy limiting shelter stays for families to 90 days. Our Amanda Harry spoke to one woman who is desperately trying to find stability for her 2 daughters.
Mothers experiencing homelessness gathered outside City Hall to ask Mayor Daniel Lurie for a simple belated Mother's Day gift: help.
We're struggling, but we're struggling together.
Sadie Bermudez immigrated from Nicaragua just 15 months ago. She told her story with the help of an interpreter. She has 2 daughters in middle school. Since they arrived, they've been struggling to find a home they can afford.
But it's been a lot of instability. I've stayed in different places for a month, 3 months, then I go somewhere else.
Right now, someone she met at church is allowing her and her family to share their studio apartment. But that's not a permanent solution. But neither are homeless shelters. The Department of Homelessness currently has a policy of evicting families with children after they spend 90 days in a city shelter. Members of the United Educators of San Francisco came out to stand beside the mothers, hoping to change that.
What we're hoping will come out of this is that we can continue having dialogue with Mayor Lurie and the Department of Homelessness to address and create solutions for these families.
Jerry Almanza has been teaching in the SFUSD school system for years. She says she can tell when a child is experiencing homelessness.
Many of our students are coming to school hungry, sleepy. The shelter in place provides the current policy provides a super stressful environment for our families who are constantly looking for housing and working.
District 9 Supervisor Jackie Fielder thinks there's a simple solution to the problem.
We can end family homelessness in San Francisco.
She promised to bring forward a proposal, which includes asking the mayor and her colleagues to put $45 million towards housing resources.
With less than 1% of our general fund, we can house 2,000 families. That is necessary and it is possible.
Children impacted by homelessness made cards for the mayor, and they delivered them to his office. Bermudez says she hopes he will take a good look at them.
We want to try to reach that human side of him, and I think together with our hearts and the administrative portion of it, we can improve a lot of lives.
Up next, we'll introduce you to an East Bay man who's a master at bonsai.
There's the essence in every tree. You find it, bring it out.
How he's shaping tiny trees to tell their stories and growing his legacy into the next generation.
In the Bay Area, a new WNBA franchise is taking flight. Catch this first-in-a-lifetime inaugural season as the Golden State Valkyries play live on KPIX and Pix Plus.
Warm conditions widespread throughout our inland areas today, and drier conditions too. It was just yesterday we were talking about rain, but now day by day heading into this weekend, we're just going to see partly cloudy skies in the forecast. Eventually some 80s trickled in there too for our daytime highs as early as Thursday, and then we're back down into the 70s diving into this weekend's forecast. Now it is a little bit cooler and a little bit cloudier for our friends along the coast and along the bay. That's going to be noticeable each day for us this week, but at least we'll hit the 70s right around the corner. Thursday heading into Friday to kick off this weekend nice and mild.
Well, all month long, we're highlighting some incredible stories for Asian American Pacific Islander Month, and today we introduce you to Dennis Makashima. For more than 50 years, he has led a tiny but growing culture in the East Bay. Makashima is considered by many as a master of aesthetic pruning and an influential figure in California's bonsai culture, that is the Japanese art of shaping and cultivating miniature trees. But a few years ago, he decided to quit and give it all away. I met the master himself to find out why.
Give Dennis Makashima a tree.
You know, I have some little buds here.
And a pair of pruning shears, and you will see him in his natural element.
So I like to think that I was meant to do this kind of work.
The kind of work that takes time.
But you got to think at least 5 years in advance.
That's patience.
Yeah, it's patience, and it's also it's a lesson in life.
It is a life that has grown for more than 50 years. Makashima, whose work as an aesthetic pruner helping to shape the art of California's bonsai culture by giving each of the thousands of trees he has ever touched an actual voice.
There's the essence in every tree. Find it, bring it out. I could do the same thing with trees. I can make them talk to you. Part of the principle of aesthetic pruning and bonsai is, I feel you got to tell a story.
His story begins with his father, who after World War II, when thousands of Japanese Americans returned home from the internment camps, many had trouble finding work.
My father was a gardener. He had to be a gardener because after World War II, you couldn't get another job. So when I was growing up, I was embarrassed by what my father did.
But ironically, one day after helping a friend prune a tree, Makishima quickly realized he had the eye.
You just naturally saw it.
Not naturally. Well, when I first started, I kind of sensed. Then I realized this was just meant to be. But I don't think I'd call it fate. It was just something that I was destined to do, this kind of stuff.
Destiny would take him to Japan, where he would learn the art of the bonsai from the masters and was honored by the country. But of all of his accomplishments, Makishima is most proud of branching out to the next generation.
You lose kind of time concept.
Students like Yuki Nara, one of 106 apprentices who carry on his legacy.
As a human being, I respect, I love him so much. I learned from him. Without him, I wouldn't be able to doing this.
Even teaching this reporter what not to do.
Cut this part off.
This whole thing?
Mm-hmm.
So from this little
right,
knob right there?
That's right.
Okay.
So you just ruined the tree, but that's okay.
Just ruined the tree.
It's good to be humble.
His sense of humor as big as his heart. During his career, he had accumulated more than 600 bonsai, his backyard resembling a tiny forest.
It was creative to pack in so many trees without looking like they were stacked on each other. But individually, they all had a story, and I worked on each one.
And then 3 years ago, Dennis felt he had completed their stories and decided to stop and give them all away.
I completed the goal. Then I started realizing I'm just looking at these trees now.
He donated them to the Golden State Bonsai Collection in Oakland, who sold them to raise money for their garden.
The trees are probably worth about $1 million, but they made about $150,000 because it was an auction. People came from all around California, and some people outside of California.
And after 50 years cultivating his own story, Dennis Makishima also deciding it too was complete.
So if you're gonna go out that way. I also thought I made a difference in the bonsai world.
But even in retirement, his legacy will continue to grow through the students he has taught, through the trees he has touched.
Well, at the peak of his business, Makishima had close to 3,000 clients, including Disneyland, where he was hired by the park to prune and revive a dwarf pine planted by Walt Disney himself. You can find all of our stories for AAPI Heritage Month on KPIX.com. Be sure to watch our special Legacy and Leadership coming up on KPIX. You can see it next Thursday on May 22nd and 7:30 p.m. and May 24th at 7 p.m. Coming up, it'll be rocking in the South Bay today thanks to the earthquakes, how downtown San Jose is transforming into a rave. Well, today, downtown San Jose, we return into a rave. DJ Steve Aoki is going to perform a free show at a block party hosted by the San Jose Earthquakes. Steve Aoki is known for throwing a cake into the crowd at his shows. Today's block party will be on 2nd Street by San Carlos in the SoFa district. It starts at 5 p.m. The celebration is leading up to the Earthquakes matchup against Miami FC at PayPal Park tomorrow. Tomorrow's game will feature one of the most famous soccer stars in the world. The Earthquakes will host Lionel Messi and his team Inter Miami. The music festival season is also heating up, and this year's lineup for the Portola Festival just dropped. Among the headliners, Christina Aguilera. Others artists include Dom Dolla, Malpi, and San Francisco native Kreayshawn. The dance party hits Pier 80 in San Francisco September 20th and 21st. Tickets go on sale Thursday at noon. Single-day tickets start at $280. Thanks for streaming CBS News Bay Area. I'm Ryan Yamamoto. We'll be right back with your first alert weather forecast and a look at your top stories.